Visit No One Likes Us Clothing for all your Millwall clobber. www.noonelikes.us.co.uk.
Hi, I'm Gary Rowett and you're listening to the world famous Achtung Millwall.
Hello dear listeners, welcome to Achtung Millwall. My name is Nick Hart. You're listening of course to the number one Millwall podcast. To begin us today, listeners, a short confession. I wasn't actually at the Den today watching that very frustrating 0-0 draw with Hull City. I'm actually away for a week's holiday. So I managed to watch a rather shaky stream of today's match. Certainly saw the bulk of it. Very frustrating game to view. It must have been very frustrating to be in the Den. I'd sense a lot of tension around the place today. But first up, Michael Avery fulfilled my live in-game comment duties for us today. So let's begin the show, listeners, by having a quick listen to Michael Avery's thoughts, musings and comments on today's action at the Den. So over to Michael now.
Achtung, Millwall.
We remember this fixture. We remember those who gave there today for our tomorrow. As the players line up around the centre circle, we invite you to join us in a minute's silence as a bugler plays the last post. The silence will end on the referee's whistle. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
Impeccably observed there, dear listener. Today's game in the Championship between Millwall Football Club and Hull City in Bermondsey. My name is Michael Avery, filling in for Mr. Nick of Hearts, who is currently in nicer places in the world. Would you say than we are now? Does that do Bermondsey a disservice? But yes, a wonderfully observed moment there of remembrance for today's remembrance fixture against Hull City, where Millwall go into this game just outside the top six, and Hull City are just outside the drop zone. So the Millwall lineup will be Long in goal, McNamara, Craswell, Cooper and Malone across the back, Mitchell and Sadler in midfield, Honeyman, Fleming, Bury, Bury and Bradshaw, with your substitutes being Evans, Shaka and Stiles, Bennett, Vogelslama, I always get that wrong, Olave and also Biakowski. Big game field today, good attendance. The lower half of the away end is nearly full. There's a few little bits around it, but good attendance from all those in the Den. As usual, dear listener, we will be checking in as and when things happen. Good early start in the first minute from Millwall here. I didn't actually voice record that first corner. Amateur from the commentator, but we have a second straight away after a scuffed effort from Billy Mitchell is saved and pushed round by the Hull keeper. Malone on the left-hand side now. He had a short corner a moment ago. Will this be one that swings out? It will slightly into the area. It's met in the air and gathered well by the 13 in goal. Good opening minute by Millwall so far. Slight concern with being a good opening minute is we've got 89 left. So we need to see how they go. And I've been pointed out as well, the block 45, the block 45, I can see streamers going off and high-pitched girl screaming. That is Harry Warren screaming the return of Ryan Woods today in the Den. So there you go, Harry. This one's for you, mate. It's like be like a tribute. Hopefully him moving around, not doing much, will be an appropriate tribute for what he contributed down at the Den. 6 minutes in, and Millwall, apart from a little moment that Hull, that's what they're going to be, Hull just had there. Looking slightly the brighter out of the two. Bradshaw just done well to slip the defender and make his way through, but I think he was caught in a little bit of a what do I do moment, because he obviously could have gone through on goal, but he was looking for a pass and decided to do neither. So it went back to the goalkeeper, but it was a good little move, spun off the shoulder well. Reminiscent of Lee Gregory, would you say?
Without the finish. So, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, without the same, yeah. Imagine Lee Gregory not being able to shoot after a really good turn. That's what Bradshaw just done. I have to say, I do like the way that the EFL referees this year are staying with the orange of the Mason scaffolding orange. They look like upside down highlighters when you're trying to get the wrestling cat. Kick is in the air and towards Jake Cooper. Jake Cooper, who literally, there was probably more, I actually physically saw more people on Jake Cooper than I saw of Jake Cooper himself, and then somehow a flick down gets a kick to Hull City. Is it going to be one of those games with whistle happy refs? Let's hope not. Talking about familiar faces as well, I completely forgot for a second there, George Honeyman was Hull's captain last year, wasn't he? And they were very disappointed that he left. Are we disappointed the contribution he's made to Mill this season, Honeyman?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what he offers so far apart from the endeavour and one goal.
I'm not going to lie, I forgot he was on the other day against Birmingham, and I liked Honeyman. I mean, against Dartford he was quality. I remember that. I remember saying, yeah. I remember saying against Dartford how he's going to be player of the season already. There's a foul there. Hull on the build-up turn, shoot. Good save by George Long. Oh, Long as well. He played for Hull. Yeah, that's another one. So Millwall player was fouled in the build-up there. The ball fell to a Hull player on the edge of the box who's had a shot curling effort well kept out by George Long. George Long has done more in this 9 minutes than he did against Birmingham the other day. Long kick up the field. Bradshaw unlucky to bring the ball down now. Good pressure on the defender. How it goes. Well done, Tom Bradshaw. And also shout out to Scott Malone's Movember effort. He looks like the guy who played Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody. And we do have a towel for this throw. That's very nice. So I'll tell you, if we don't score from this, from all that drying, there's something seriously wrong with the game. Big throw, met in the air. Flicked on. And no, nearly. Cooper's just on the end of it. See, this is where you need Cooper to be a bit taller, really, don't you? Still 0-0. Brought down there by Honeyman. That was awful, wasn't it? Plays it again back out wide against a Fleming, who beats his player. Lovely cross. No! Lovely cross goal. And the new centre-forward Cooper, who spent so much time up front so far, nearly gets on the end of it again. He's had a good start, Fleming, don't we think, James? He's a baller. I don't even know what that means, so I'm over 30. But he's clearly got an ability level that you could argue is more
better than the other 10.
Better than the other 21. Yeah. But he's definitely got the ability. He can beat a player. He knows what he wants to do with it. And these crosses, in the nicest way. And this is no criticism of any player here, really. But if you had a player who could probably read these a second or two quicker, you'd be looking at 2-0 now. We were driving down to the game earlier today, and we was driving through Greenwich, all around the one-way system, and all you can hear is like Leicestershire, la 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 la, and all this. And basically, I forgot it was the first round of the FA Cup this weekend, even though I watched parts of it last night on the telly. But Charlton have got Colville Town today, and then you heard the famous, I want to go home. This place is not a nice place, which is the PG version for our young listeners. I want to go home. Colville Town are playing against Charlton today, and I actually Googled who they were and where they are. And they're up in Leicestershire, as their supporters would sing. And their ground doesn't look too great, to say the least. It looks like a couple of sheds around the pitch, but I think if you go into the valley, I think that song's quite accurate about London being a shithole. But it makes you think, doesn't it, with these early rounds of the FA Cup and where we've come from as a club, really. There's a lot of comment on Gary Rowett and the football we play and all this kind of stuff. But here's the ultimate question: I think Neil Fizzler said it the other day on an Achtung. Where would you rather be? Yes, we are a steady championship team under Gary Rowett. I'd rather be playing in a league game in November than playing in the FA Cup, that's for sure. And I love the FA Cup, but those early rounds against some of these teams can be a tad tedious. Hull on the attack now from a corner. Shot comes in, there's a deflection. Falls to Woods on the edge of the box, who has a shot, cuts through everyone. Oh, he has a shot through, and on the edge of the 6-yard box, there's a Cruyff turn, a Cruyff deflection, not so much a turn, Cruyff deflection towards goal, and long holds well. But yeah, so back to the point at the start of the voice note. Millwall Hull on a Saturday in November may not be the most glamorous of games before we go to the World Cup. But I'd rather this than those early rounds of the FA Cup, that's for sure. Ironically, speaking of FA Cup weekends and games and Hull, I always remember that game. I think it was the 2009-10 season or 2008-9. Somewhere obviously around there under Kenny Jackett, one season where he was being promoted from League One and Hull was in the Premier League, and we had that infamous away game where Hull beat us 2-0, and all you can say, it was slightly lively. Was you at that game, dear listener? Was you there? If so, remember your thoughts and write them down on a postcard, because I will write them with the pen that was hurled at me when we was at Hull. Lively to say the least. Enjoyable, very enjoyable. And I remember going down motorways with loads of blue lights around us for quite a long time on the coach. Coach 2, I weren't Coach 1, Coach 2. But yeah, it was an interesting day. A through ball's played to Bradshaw from Malone, who's right by the corner flag. Cross comes in from Honeyman. Oh, blimey, alrighty. That's very, very, very close. Cooper wins a header and is wrestled to the floor at the same time. And the ref gives nothing. And Rowett is going over to the referee asking what's going on. And I think Millwall were asking, what does he need to do to win a penalty? Because yeah, that was pretty strong. Corner cut. So yeah, now he's stopped play because Cooper's been pulled on the floor again before the corner's been kicked. And now the referee's having a word with the two of them. I can't understand why the ref's talking to both players. But it's something he needs to get hold of quickly, because it's going to be one of those games, either they're just going to start chinning each other or throwing each other all over the place, and then it turns into one of those games. So yeah, so an earlier cheer was for a yellow card on the 20 by Hull City, should I say? Sorry, I lost words there. So the 20's in the book because he basically tripped up Bury when he was through from a low through ball. From a free kick. There's a lot going on at the moment just outside the box now. The Hull City players are asking why the player's been booked, and it's a clear trip when Bury's through. I'm not saying he was through on goal or anything like that, dear listener, or he would have really done anything with it, but it's a silly, cynical foul. He knew what he was doing. The ball is now, I'd say, about 5-10 yards outside of goal. The referee's walking back the wall, should be just inside the box. Yep, he sprayed the white paint that looks like shaving cream all over the floor. A hush goes round the den. Or as Charlton calls it, atmosphere. I don't know why I'm on a Charlton bash today. I don't really care too much about Charlton, to be fair. But the line is made. Fleming is stepping back. Whistle is taken. He runs towards the ball. He curls it round the wall. Oh, the side netting ripples. The keeper was beat. There's no two ways about it. But so was the post. Yeah, the keeper watching it again on the replay. It's a lovely free kick. He's got absolutely no chance. If that's on target, but it's so close. And you can hear the eyeing around me because they keep showing the repeat on the replay. Oh, and dear listener, nearly goal, should I say. It was literally very reminiscent of the Arsenal goal against Norwich a few years ago with Wilshere. So basically, Fleming's got the ball. He's played it he's turned beautifully, played it along to Bradshaw. Bradshaw's cut it back. It's gone to Saville. Saville's passed it back into Fleming. And he's just missed. It was a fantastic effort. Oh, there's a straight red. And as I'm talking about the goal, the goal we nearly scored, should I say? As I'm talking about the goal we nearly scored, there's a foul, a nasty looking foul in the Millwall half. You just hear off from the 19, and bang, that red card is straight out. Was it the 19 who sent off? Yeah, it was sent straight off. Let's see what happens now. We always say Millwall don't always do great against 10 men, but they're down to 10 now. Red card. How you pronounce that?
A stupid nam.
It's a stupid tackle. That or foul. That's what it was. Creswell now wearing a wearing a headband that's reminiscent of Terry Butcher back in the day. For the oldest listener, do you remember the Terry Butcher during the World Cup? Yeah. It's just a shame this season he's played more like Pat Butcher. We're coming up to 45 now, and it's not been too bad a half. In truth, it's been okay. Been some nice stuff. We've had some good moments. Fleming's looked really good. Lovely free kick, as I said, in that build-up with that. Lovely passing movement that nearly led to a goal. Cooper's come close a couple of times. A couple of debatable penalties we could have had. And obviously now hold down to 10 men. So it's been a good showing from the Lions. Certainly better than the Birmingham game, that's for sure. But I think the Division 3 paint drying championship would have been better than the Birmingham game. But it's looking good, looking positive. If there's one team who's going to score, it's going to be us. Oh, just a bit too long. Just a bit too long the pass. But it's going well. Back now for the second half of the game. Millwall now kicking towards the Coldblow Lane end in accordance with whatever old book that Nick normally quotes. An old book. Pride and Prejudice. That's how old I am. A little bit younger. Is that John Berylson over there? Is he here for the game? Oh, JB, I think he is. Yeah. He didn't wave at me, dear listener. It's just I saw him. He did. It's not as if he asked for my attention. Bradshaw at one point legged it off the pitch. He's now got a toilet roll off the end of his boot, so we can only presume where he's been. I'll tell you what, this is a preview, dear listener, of what we've got to look forward to in the Premier League. The game is still playing. That's a bad tackle on Danny McNamara. But the game is still being played. We're 5 minutes in, and there's a fella in it looked like an Apollo 13 jacket, didn't it? Yeah, he's clearly not from these parts. It's not Stone Island. Or Nolu clothing. It's a plug. Good segue. No one likes this.co.uk. All money goes to the not all money, some money goes to the Lions Food Hub. He was stood there taking picture while the game was going on. I don't think he was English.
No,
not that makes any difference.
He's one of Bowman Salmon's mates.
He could well be. Let's not be too presumptuous. Corner now on the left-hand side for Millwall. Malone with his weird orange and black boots. Looks like he's going to curl this out. Another call for a player going down there. I think it was Fleming. Ball goes back out wide to Malone, who's going to get another cross in. The cross is lovely. Again, really good cross. Met in the air, but Fleming with a half volley. I'll tell you what, if that was Ben Thompson last season or dare we say Alan Dunn a few years ago, we would have packed his bags. But because it's Fleming, it's unlucky. Unlucky Zian. Saw the idea. It might have hit that steward right at the top there and knocked the sea off the Coldblow Lane side. We saw the idea. Corner comes in. Cleared again. And it's just, we're watching it now, and I had a moment of silence there while I was trying to describe what's going on. But, I mean, we really need to do more with these corners. I mean, we've had, 3-4 in this half alone. I'm going to ask Stato to get the stats out, but we've had so many corners and not done anything with them. I mean, we're not even winning the initial challenge in the air. And like I said, we've had three or four this half already.
5 in total.
Five in total, and
might be more than that.
Yeah, it's probably not been refreshed, because I swear we've had about 3 or 4 in the first half down here, and a few more in the second half so far. But I mean, looking at the stats now, I mean, we've had 9 shots, 2 on target, 5 corners. We really need to be doing more. We need to be doing more with these corners. You don't even mind if they meet them in the air and like they head it wide or it goes over or something like that. But we're not even winning that initial first header that's really challenging the goalkeeper, especially in the last few. Without trying to be too defeatist already, because we're at 60 minutes and I'm hoping the curse of the commentator gets me this time. But the last couple of minutes really has been knocking the ball around. They've got 10 men and they're passing it into so much space and moving. I mean, like there's 3 on the edge of the box. They're ducking in and out now. Cross comes in. You know, we shouldn't be this under the cosh, considering they're the ones with a man less than us. We're attacking now. Bury with the ball on the edge of our box, and now he's just standing still. Do so with it. There's a really long cross to absolutely no one. Absolutely no one. The ball gets played to Bury. Bury literally stands there for easily 3-4 seconds. plays it out wide to Bradshaw, and Bradshaw just hoofs it into the box. And just keeper just plucks out the air. We're the ones with 11 players. And like now, Hull, they are passing this ball around every time. Look, 1-touch, 2-touch passing around our team. They've got 10 players. Do something. Tackle them. You know, we said at the start of the half, and Millwall need, like, you know, they're probably better side, playing some good stuff. The goalkeeper, turn down the goalkeeper. He's closing down. We need to sharpen up. It was a good first half, and I was going to say before I'd done this recording that the mistakes are coming in now, the silly crosses, but it's just these last few minutes have been awful, really bad. And we've taken the lead. Oh, it's offside. Oh, I thought that was it. I thought that was the curse of the commentator. I thought that was 1-0, but the offside flag is up. Cross goes in, ball finds the roof of the net. Offside flags up. The problem we're getting at the moment is Hull. They're doing the classic time wasting, and I know some listeners are, we don't like the time wasting and all that kind of stuff that comes with it. But they're doing what every team do when they're away from home. They're away from home. They're now currently, as it stands, in the bottom three because of other results in other places. But they're away from home, 10 men in the bottom three. They desperately need a point. And they're just doing time wasting things. Ryan Woods, it just took him about a week and a half to get off the pitch when he was subbed. The goalkeeper, every short goal kick every goal kick he's taking his time. And every time he's got the ball in his hands, he's using those 8 to 10 seconds or whatever it is he's allowed to have. We've just got to stop being sucked into it. It's game management tactics. And I'll tell you what, everyone's getting pissed off with the referee and everyone's getting annoyed with the time wasting. It wouldn't be this case if we took our chances and was 2-0 up, would it? You know, that we wouldn't see them time wasting as much then. So it's down to us to beat these teams, not rely on them to not time waste, use tactics to let us in the game. Fleming's had a great game today. Whereas a team we've been flat. Fleming individually has played really, really well, and he's trying to get the crowd into it. We're now in the last 5 minutes of added on time. I was just saying a moment ago that, you know, if you're a fan of football, be it Millwall, Hull, whoever, and you're an away fan, you'd be slightly disappointed. Obviously, you come down 0-0, not had a lot of actions, and you're seeing your team play for a draw when you're 3-4 hours from home. But professionally, if you was a Hull manager or someone linked with Hull, like a player or coaching staff, if this stays 0-0, it's absolutely spot on for them. They're frustrating Millwall. Millwall have at times been sort of better sides in periods. They've frustrated them. They've done what they've needed to do. Job done. Millwall. As soon as that player got sent off, everyone here in Block 3 was very much, we don't do well against 10 men. And this second half has shown it, because I wouldn't say that the first half was electric or amazing or, you know, pay-per-view type football and all that Champions League level stuff. But it was okay. It was good. There was chances. There was things to build on. But we just haven't built on it this second half. And like I said, there's been times where you'd think, Hull, with a team had 11 players, not us, and you can hear the frustrations of the crowd because we've given them the support, we've backed them. There's silly little fouls there from Styles, silly fouls there that's not needed when you've only got a couple of minutes left, and he's going to blow any minute now. It's going to be a long free kick up the pitch, game over surely. If you're Hull, you go away very happy. If you're Millwall, you go away disappointed because this hasn't been good enough. We play, as young James says next year, we play with forwards who are pressing forwards. You know, like, do they have the skill that you need to be a top 6 club? You can argue maybe not. Fleming is a player. If you've got a player of disability who's disinfluential, get him in the game more. You can't have a game plan of relying on Jake Cooper every time there's a set piece or a corner or a throw or anything that relies on his height. You've got to have a player like Fleming and bring him in the game. Get him in the game more. We play the passes to him. We get the ball to him occasionally, but he should be. If you shouldn't have one player. You shouldn't have one player who's going to be. You shouldn't have one player who's your focal point. And if you are, it's got to be your most creative talent out there. And we don't use Fleming the way I think we should. And even Vogelsammer, he has his critics, but I think he's good enough that warrants a start as well. This whistle's going to go any minute now. Any minute now, this whistle's going to go. Bradshaw brings the ball down on the edge of the box. Hull clear it. The referee's looking at his watch. Malone is chasing down the ball. Charlton's telling him to relax a bit. Boos ring around the den for a first half that had promise. It's just not delivered, dear listener. I said the other day, Birmingham, away, you go away, play not too great, but get your point. If you make it count and you win at home. Fucking two, Bob. Preston away next week, come on you Lions.
Hello?
Mike Hayden here, following that 0-0 draw against Hull City. I'm having a beer tonight. I'm sure some of the listeners will be as well, or perhaps something stronger. What are we doing at the moment? We're going through the old Gary Rowett cycle again, where you go on a good run of form. Gary Rowett's the best thing since sliced bread, and then you go on a shit run of form, and people are saying Rowett out. And you just have this sort of continuous cycle. And that for me screams mid-table mediocrity, or just slightly above mid-table, just to make Gary's CV look a little bit better. 9th or 10th. Oh yeah, top half finish. Well done, Gary. But yeah, it just fucks me off, to be honest, because this is it's not enough. I mean, the clear ambition at the moment this season is a top 6 finish. We've heard it from the manager. The club want to finish there. The investment in the side is a top 6 finish. Now, historically, I'm sure all of you have been supporting Millwall for a long time. We are still performing extremely well as a club. Don't get me wrong, but if someone comes out and says the ambition is to finish top 6, then anything beneath that, for me, is underperforming. And today was an underperformance. I think I can't fault the players necessarily, because I think, there were some decent performances out there. I thought Malone had a good game. Fleming has his moments, has also his erratic nature, kicking it over the bar every 20 minutes. But I think he's got something, and we know that. But there were other good performances out there. But I think what let it down today, when you're playing against 10 men who have 10 men behind the ball, basically the whole second half, is unfortunately the managerial performance. I didn't think it was good enough. I think the substitutions were essentially just bringing on almost like-for-like players in the same position, and we were just focusing on getting lucky again. Your luck runs out when you're focusing on direct play, knockdowns, deflections, someone hitting off someone's arse and going in. Sometimes it works for you, and I think that's maybe why we had this good run of form. When it works, it's great. But if you're thinking that you want to be a top 6 club, you have to be better than that, and you have to do more than that. And unfortunately, we're not showing that at the moment. If we can crack that, and if Rowett can crack it and actually score in a different way, then, we could well be a top 6 side. But at the moment, it's very much based on luck. But I just don't know why he just didn't try and just switch it around. I mean, just chuck 2 up front, or do something kind of slightly different. The goal may well have come today, and maybe we wouldn't have been as disappointed today, because we did, obviously thoroughly deserve to win. But I think it goes back to the old, lack of creativity and lack of ideas. And when you're just lumping it in the box all game, hoping that something happens, again, that is not a side that is gearing up for a top 6 push. So I demand more from Rowett. I think he's got to have a look at it and go, in a game like that, we don't want to lose the game, which is obviously his first focus. But that was a really, really disappointing result today, and also the last 2 as well. I think Birmingham, Huddersfield and Hull, to be honest, will probably be in the bottom 6-8 positions in the league. We need to be picking up more than 2 points from 3 games. So yeah, I'm demanding more from the Lions at the moment. And if we can give more, I'm sure we'll be all right, because I think the players are there. I just think there's something missing, whether it's a change of management or whether it's him just still not quite finding that mojo. Anyway, time for another pint.
Hello Nick, Graham Payne here. Why do we always struggle to beat sides when they go down to 10 men? I was happy with the starting 11, hoping Tyler Bury would finally have an impact from the start. However, he proved yet again that he's better when he comes off the bench. He had no real involvement in the game, unfortunately. We had a couple of half chances in the first half. A Cooper header and Fleming was close with a free kick. The sending off was correct. It was a reckless high challenge on Charlie Cresswell. I think we've all seen the photo of his face. Second half, we huffed and puffed, slow build-up play from side to side at the back, crosses going into the box with no real impact. Bradshaw's was offside for his disallowed goal. Scott Malone came closest to scoring, I think, with the shot that the keeper tipped over. Rowett's tactics, especially against 10 men, again will come into question. I think he seriously needs to think about getting in an attacking coach during the break. Did not agree with Saville being subbed. I thought he was playing well. And why was Alafi not brought on instead of Evans? It appears he will never be given a chance under Rowett. So that's 3 games, no goals and just 2 points. I think when it comes down to it, we just lack players of real quality in the forward positions to win games like today. It will probably stop us from moving up to the next level and probably finishing outside the playoff spots again. Anyway, on to the next game, away to Preston. Come on, you Lions.
Achtung, Millwall.
Achtung, Christmas is a-coming, dear listeners. And, to quote Richard Chaplow, 26 appearances, 9 subs, 1 goal, as he once said, you cannot beat a good board game. And we've got a good board game for you here. Achtung has teamed up with a tremendous football trivial pursuit style game called Pundit. You can follow Pundit at Pundit Games on Twitter. And it's a really nice little game, actually. It's a board game. It consists of football trivia questions, easy and hard. Some of the hard ones are very, very hard. And you move along a football pitch to score goals against your opponent. It will suit the football head in your life, dear listeners. Great way to pass a Christmas afternoon. You can get a 10% discount if you visit punditgames.co.uk. That's PUNDITGAMES, punditgames.co.uk. You get a 10% discount at checkout with the code LIONS in capital letters. LIONS, capital letters. And every sale will benefit the Lions Food Hub. What a better way to pass your Christmas than to enjoy a good football trivia game and to know you're doing good at the same time. So get on it. punditgames.co.uk.
Achtung, Millwall.
Huge thank you to Michael Avery for those live notes, which really gave a sense of today's very frustrating match. But joining me now to chew over the cud of that game is the man himself, Michael Avery. Welcome on the show, Michael.
Good evening, dear listener, from a wet bonfire night in South East London. I hope you enjoyed some of those notes more than the game itself.
Just talking about the game, it was a frustrating 90 plus minutes there, Mike. I was watching on a stream, listeners. I wasn't at the den today. So I was watching it via, a constantly buffering stream, which looked like it wasn't far away from the reality of the game. A couple of things really struck me, Mike, watching on from afar. The referee today, I thought, was appalling. I thought an awful referee. You're a ref yourself. How did you see his refereeing performance today? Was that the root of all evil, or was it wider than that for you?
I was surprised. Let's just say that since doing the referee course, the anger to officials has definitely dialed down. But I was surprised that some penalties weren't given, especially. I don't know if you recall, Nick, if you saw it on the stream, but there was one time where Jake Cooper and the 5 for Hull, I can't remember his name now, but they were holding each other. The referees pulled them up. So the referee's saying to both of them, don't do it again, or obviously there'll be repercussions either way, depending on which way the decision goes, or we can only presume the referee was saying that. And then literally as the corner swings in, exactly the same thing he's just told them off for doing happens. And, it's not, Nick, it's not as if he even gives a foul the other way, where you could think, well, Cooper's like leaning in, or he's hanging on to Cooper, or whatever it might be. But I did struggle with quite a lot of the decisions today, personally, in the sense where a few of the people I sit with know I'm a referee as well, and they're asking me, and I'm like, well, some of them, referees don't overly like not don't like giving penalties, wrong way of putting it, but they like to see game flow and things like that. But I was bewildered with at least 2 or 3 of them, why they weren't penalties.
I mean, obviously, watching on the TV, you're given the benefit of the zoom camera, whereas in real life, you're up high in the stands. I am that normally. So, you know, they zoomed in on Jake and the whole defender, and it was like a rugby match, Mike. I mean, you know, they clearly. I mean, teams will identify Jake Cooper and our set piece threat as something they need to counter, and it's almost like they're being given aiding and abetting by the referee, because if an actual, you know, the people are wrestling him to the ground, and it wasn't, you know, it's not an exaggeration to say that, and it's not penalised, then they carry on doing it. And that's pretty much what happened for large chunks of today's game. There's just no, the whistle was not being blown for clear and obvious breaches of the rules of football. And I don't know where you go with that, because, you know, I think the commentary team, Carl and I think his name was Dave today, I think his name was. But they made the point that because Jake's a big bloke, that somehow referees think everything's his fault. I can't believe it's that simplistic, but that seems to be how it worked out today.
Yeah, and there was one time in the game, I think I managed to get it in the sort of stream today, from what I recall, but there was one time where there was like 3 players all over him, and you think, you know, in football, one player makes the tackle, so what were the other 2 doing? You know, like there wasn't even an obstruction like given. You know, you can maybe argue, oh, it might not be a free kick and all this, but or like a foul, but there's got to be an obstruction. You can't have 3 players literally wrapping themselves around Jake Cooper like boa constrictors, the way they were at some points around him, and just nothing being given whatsoever. I mean, there are some. Like, you know, when you do referee games, there is any doubt whatsoever, you know, you do tend to go to the defending team, because to give a decision against an attacking team when you're in doubt, it will have far more repercussions on the game than giving it to a defending team. You know, like if you give the benefit,
they always are on the side of the defence, it seems. Yeah,
exactly. Now, I'm not saying that all referees do that. Don't get me wrong. Before anyone starts saying, "Oh, refs are bent" and all this kind of thing. But just to give you an idea, you know, but there's some, like we say there, where 1 or 2 of them you might think, maybe I can see with a referee's head on why he's give it. But like I said, there was so many today. So many today. But
it was a frustrating watch, that's for sure.
It was frustrating, Nick. But like I said at points as well to some of the people sat around me, we had our chances ourselves. You know, so many people were moaning about time wasting and, you know, the goalkeeper taking long with the ball in his hands, etc., etc. We should have been 2-0 up in the first half, you know, with some of the chances we had. You know, they weren't necessarily clear cut, but, you know, we should have put them away.
I agree. I mean, I wouldn't say we had plenty of chances. I'm just looking at my own notes, but we did have chances, listeners. I mean, including the first half. Jake, I think, just couldn't get an extra inch on the end of his very long legs already to poke one home. It was about 9 or 10 minutes into the game, and that was from one of Zian's long throws. And, you know, I think Bury made a couple of runs which created crosses, which on another day get touched in. So we across both halves of the free kick, and then the disallowed goal, which takes me back to the referee, because, again, with the benefit of such replay as the stream showed today, it was very hard to see what it was disallowed for. I mean, the commentary was talking about offside, but I can't believe it was offside, because Bradshaw looked like he was behind the defenders, such as you could tell. And I've got a caveat that you don't see the whole incident, and we don't have any other angles to work with. But unless it was for pushing, and that wasn't mentioned, I can't see how it was offside. But it looked like a decent goal, but it was disallowed. And, you know, I think there's a combination. My summary that I wrote to myself, I don't know if you'd agree with this, Mike, is that we had no luck, we had an awful referee, and we lacked guile to unlock a difficult and well-organised, in fairness, defence. Hull City, from the moment they went down to 10 men, seemed to me to be there to make life difficult for us, which they will do. And we didn't have the wit to unpick that lock. That strikes me as the problem being, as somebody put online, I can't remember who it was who posted this, but it's 3 games now, 270 minutes of football, plus if you include added time, where we've not scored a goal. That's the kind of record we've lurched from one extreme to the other, don't it? One minute we're looking unstoppable, and then we go on this kind of desert run of no goals. You know, it's like being in the Kalahari Desert suddenly, goals-wise.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, Nick, I don't know about you, but you say about guile and luck and everything, and bad refereeing, which I agree. I do agree with you. But I just think there were points where we just run out of ideas. Like there was a bit where Tyler Bury's got the ball on the edge of the box, and I'm not sure if the buffering covered it, or you thought there was a fault with the camera when it was buffering. But there was one point where he literally stood there for about like 4 seconds, and
no idea.
Screamed him to do something, and someone else was screaming to do something. The crowd, and he just stood there. And this goes back to a degree. I'll touch on Gary Rowett's tactics shortly, so I don't think he got everything 100% right. But then there's also elements where, yes, with his tactics, but you shouldn't have to tell a professional footballer who stopped 6 yards out to keep running or shoot. Like these professional footballers, it's their livelihood. One thing I will mention, I'm not sure if you would agree with this or not, and listeners also, I think that, so last season we had a reliance on Jed Wallace, in the season before we had reliances on Jed Wallace. Recently, we seem to have a reliance on Jake Cooper. I'll put in our group chat, half tongue in cheek, when did Cooper become a forward? Because there was plenty of times in that game he was up front. And like we said about the tactics they do now, Millwall, where they take the goal kick and they play it long. But you take Cooper out of the games, like so from the corners. Our attacking play from corners was atrocious today, absolutely atrocious. We did absolutely nothing.
Poor crossing all afternoon, Michael. I thought that the quality of our crossing generally, including dead balls, corners, and I mean, we rarely beat that defence, and that's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And what I was saying as well was, like, even when we did beat the first man, and there was a chat. There was no challenging in the box at all. Like every corner was a free header out by Hull because they nullified Jake. But if your game plan is you want to focus on one player, or one player's the catalyst who gets things, right? That's fine. That's how you want to play the game and you want it to work. That's fine. We've got a player in Zian Fleming who today done so much with the ball when he got it and showed how much better he is than probably the majority of every single player on that pitch today. Why are you not building or getting him in the game more? Yes, we gave him the ball at times, but for this fascination with every ball corner had to go to Jake Cooper, or every kickoff had to go to Jake Cooper, or dead ball, you've got a player in Zian Fleming there who is like an absolute puppet master, can pull every single string. And you're not utilising him properly. The way he played today, and I think the issue we had with, because I counted 4 in the first half. So you had Fleming with the free kick that hit the side netting. You had that lovely little movement where it was all that sort of 1-2 touch football around players, which Fleming was instrumental in and dictating the whole thing. And we nearly scored. And then you had those... I think you had a throw in from Fleming and a cross from Fleming that Cooper didn't get on the end of, which I recall.
I think today it strikes me that we're now haunted by this statistic that there's 203 games without a goal now. Huddersfield and then Birmingham and today. On another day, yes, I think the Zian Fleming is. I got slightly teased the other day from Neil for overpraising him. I remain convinced he's a talented player.
Oh, he's excellent.
And he's excellent. He's playing passes and balls for players of lesser imagination that they can't get onto. It's a bit like I wouldn't put him in the same breath perhaps as Glenn Hoddle in his pomp, but Hoddle would often play balls for players that they just either couldn't make or hadn't even foreseen. And I think there's something of that with Zian. I mean, in the end, it gets a bit indulgent because he's trying to do too much on his own, which is Jed Wallace's, it was Jed Wallace's syndrome towards the end of his time. But yeah, I mean, we failed to unlock a pretty solid looking 10-man Hull City today. And that kind of sums up large chunks of the season, Michael, really, isn't it? That lack of ability to find a goal when one's needed.
Yeah. Going back to the Fleming comment, and then we'll go back to what you said about unlocking Hull. I think you were spot on, and I think the reason, and we said very similar at half time, with the sort of crosses he put in and came close and all that kind of stuff. I think he's just where he's more intelligent than the other players. I don't know if it's academically, but football-wise, he's
a different thing.
Yeah, he's more intelligent. They can't read what he's going to do until it's too late. Like with those crosses, you could see Cooper was a second too slow. Or Sometimes there was some movement that he played the ball through, and it might have looked like it was a heavy touch, but actually, if the player read it earlier, it was a great ball, that kind of thing. I think with Hull, I said it as well. I can't remember if I said it in the game voice notes or to somebody who sat next to me, but I said if you was a Hull fan and you came back from the Den, you'd be like, well, a little bit disappointed. 3-4 hour coach journey down. You've just seen a 0-0. If you was Hull City professional associated with a club, a player, manager, coaching staff, tea lady, whoever, you would be happy with that performance today because you've come into that game just outside the relegation zone. I think they might have slipped into it, but they've still got a point. They've gone to someone like Millwall who's trying to get into the top 6. You've gone down to 10 men. You're at the bottom of the table fighting for your life, and you've just completely shut them out in that second half. I mean, the first half...
Well, they worked hard. They worked hard.
Yeah,
they worked very hard.
And I'm not going to say the first half was the best half of football I've ever seen. Absolutely wasn't. It really wasn't. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad first half from Millwall. And I genuinely thought we can actually sort of build a little bit on this now. You know, like cut out these little mistakes here and there, read what Fleming's going to do. And I said, I think if there's one team who's going to win this game, it will be us. It won't be like we won't run away with it, but it will be us. And then
it's always going to be a game of one goal. I mean, I'm just reading. Phil Clark posted how some interchange of views took place between Gary Rowett and I imagine the West Lower at the end of the game. I mean, and I love the meme that Harry just sent around on our group chat, which is like the 5 stages of grief type of idea, listeners. The 4 stages of Gary Rowett, which begins how we have a good run. Then everyone's saying he's going to take us to the Premier League. Then we can't score a goal. And then the next one is out, Rowett out. It's like a circle, you know, like the 5 stages of grief, the 4 stages of Gary Rowett grief. It keeps coming back to the same question as to whether he has whether we have collectively within the side the wit to unlock these kinds of defences. It will be, I mean, home form's going to govern whether we do get close to the top 6 at the end of the season, or whether, as Neil said in a recent show, that we lack the investment ability to produce players that are going to score chances when they do finally come. I mean, is it better to be in and around the top 6 and maybe just not quite there, or is it better to overstretch yourself and sign the big marquee signing that maybe or maybe doesn't get those kinds of goals? It's going to be a season where you kind of keep asking that question, I think, Michael.
Yeah. Firstly, I'd like to apologise for the banging outside. It's not my brain cells exploding in anger at that game. That's the fireworks, if anyone can.
Maybe there's a Gary Rowett guy on the local bonfire, mate.
Penny for the Rowett on the bonfire. But,
listen, I'm going to let you go, Michael. You've done a sterling job today on the old live stream. Did you enjoy doing that? The old live talk.
It was quite good fun.
It's a weird thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, it was good fun, I've got to say. But one final comment, and sorry if this final comment leads into another 5-10 minute chat, because I know you're away. I genuinely think, obviously you can't prove it because you don't know what teams are going out there. I think a top 6 team would have beat Hull today, and quite comfortably.
Interesting point. I think you're possibly right. We've got the World Cup break looming, and then we have the January transfer window. We're going to see what we're going to get out of that. I think I know what you're saying, though, and I think at the moment, based on the current squad, we'll have good games, we'll have little good runs, and then we'll go for a dearth like we are at the moment. So, yeah. Listen, I'm going to let you crack on. Enjoy your Guy Fawkes night, Michael, and I really appreciate you doing that live stuff today. Michael Avery, everyone. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. Arrivederci Millwall.
So huge thank you to Michael for both the live stream and also for the post-game comments today, listeners. I found today's match, as I said, I was watching on screen, so it's a bit different to actually being there in the den. I thought the first half was... up until the sending off, it was actually a fairly energetic, wasn't a bad game, wasn't the worst game I've ever seen in my time at Millwall. We did create chances. I'm just looking at my notes here. Long throw, flick on, which fell to Jake Cooper on the 9th minute. Couldn't touch it in. Jules Long made a couple of decent saves, just one before that and then one just after that. Hull City pressing forwards. And then, of course, the superb, I think I mentioned it with Michael, absolutely superb passing movement. Reminded me of the the kind of 1992-93 era of Millwall passing football, Diamond, Bruce Rioch's Diamond, and all that. Very unlucky not to score there. Fleming in front of goal just couldn't touch it in. Then the turning point of what should have been the turning point of the game, which was a straight red card on 36 minutes. Justified straight red. I mean, the post-match pictures of Charlie Cresswell looking like he's been hammered 3 rounds in the ring with Mike Tyson, or Tyson Fury perhaps, bring it up to date. He continued the game. I mean, the post-match pictures, he's almost got a foot mark on his face. He continued the game bandaged up. So, full marks to Charlie Cresswell for bravery. I thought we did quite well today defensively. Our problem today, as the chances continued but not to be taken through the second half, our problem as ever this season has been goal scoring or lack of. Post-match, I'm just looking at some of the comments online after the game. Phil Clark, I've mentioned this with Michael already. A few fans, says Phil, sharing their thoughts of Gary Rowett as the game closes, to be grandly greeted with numerous fuck-offs back to each one from Gary. So an exchange of views there, listeners. I imagine from the lower west. Not a good afternoon all round. Phil says he doesn't have a problem with him giving it back, but it's a sure sign the pressure is telling. This takes us back to some of the issues that Neil Fissler and I spoke about on our recent show, whether we'll be 9th or 10th now in the table. We're about 3 points off the top 6. I do take Michael's point that top 6 sides would have won today and we didn't win today, so that's maybe a tell as to where we might finish up. And we do have a big opportunity ahead as the World Cup break looms. We'll then have the opportunity in January to possibly add to the squad and give ourselves more firepower. Whether that will be enough firepower to actually turn the season around and fire us into the top 6, I don't know. Or is it, as Neil and I said, discussed, that it's actually not a bad performance to be in the mix? It's a deep question. A lot of people online are expecting us to do better than what we did today. Alex Grace makes the point that was Hull City's first clean sheet in 17 games. Steve Evans, blunt and to the point. As ever, Steve, it's 3 servings of shit without a goal, so that's 270 minutes of football. No goals in the last 3 games. Steve says this is the Millwall that we all know and love. Tim Shoveler says, complains about people booing. Turn it in, says Tim. That must be at the end of the game. As I say, I wasn't there today, so I am guessing that the final whistle drew boos, I'm guessing. Emma Jones of BBC London Sports says that Rowett saw today as a missed opportunity. It was a missed opportunity. We should have won. We didn't win. And that may be, a game that, with a few others, comes to cost us in the long run. Last one of this group, David Davison replies back to Emma Jones. What about Gary Rowett doing better with his awful coaching, says David. Millwall played just below 3 just below average teams and we haven't scored. Now 2 more away games coming up with pure negativity. Around the merry-go-round we go. There's a great meme. I just touched on it with Michael in the conversation. Harry's forwarded a meme, the 4 stages of Gary Rowett grief, which shows Rowett is on a good run of 3 or 4 games on the bounce, arrow to the right. Rowett's taking us to the Premier League, it says, arrow on, but now we have a really long streak with no goals, no wins. And then next one after that is Rowett out, and then we go back to he's on a good run of 3 or 4 games on the bounce, and round the circle we go. I think, as we've said a few times on these podcasts, I do believe that the season's going to be like the Hollies song, the road is long and many a winding turn. I think we've got a long season ahead of us. We do lack goal firepower. Can we get it in? Don't know. Will we spend the money? Probably not. We'll be there or thereabouts. I think we will. I think we didn't. We did more luck, a better referee, and a little bit better decision making. We've got to use Zian Fleming to a better extent, as we've just discussed with Michael. Final point, just before I close out this week's show, bit of a hodgepodge because I'm away at the moment, so it's all thrown together somewhat. I just thought I'd want to say thank you to the club and to the Armed Forces personnel today for the usual superb pre-match remembrance ceremonies. Absolutely top notch, as it always is at Millwall. And if nothing else, that made watching the game today on the stream juddery, buffery as it was, made it all worthwhile. Anyway, there we are, onwards and upwards. Thank you for listening to the show, listeners. Apologies for its slightly tacked together quality this week. I'm going to close out now with a few voicemails, and we will be back next week after the Preston North End away game. Until then, dear listeners, it's Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
Hello.
Nick, it's Matt Richards, driving back from a wet and windy den this afternoon. Yeah, it's just frustrating really. I thought we played well. We definitely, I know it's obvious, but we should have won that easily. And I wouldn't say we played badly. I mean, you say that, okay, so we played up against 10 men for the whole of the second half. So you say it's a bad performance because we didn't win, but I thought we did enough to win. I mean, looking at the stats, we had over 20 shots on goal. Perhaps some of those shots were quite wayward. Well, they were. It's taking chances, isn't it? That's 3 games in a row now. We haven't scored since Tyler's scuffed goal against West Brom. Same old problem, scoring goals, isn't it? Really. There's some decent crosses today, but no one there to kind of get on the end of it. I mean, I think the first half we dominated even when they had 11, and there's some decent chances. There was a good little move at the start of the game from a corner with Fleming had a shot. Clearly, that's been done on the training ground. Fleming had a free kick, which brilliantly struck and just hit the side netting. Brilliant move as well between him. I think Bradshaw, Saville was there, and I mean, if it had gone in, it would have been one of the best goals I think I've seen at the Den. And so we were deservedly the better side. I mean, then the sending off. I don't know. Maybe it was slightly. I don't really care really, but maybe it was slightly harsh. Maybe he could have got away with a yellow. But sending off, brilliant. And so you just kind of thought, well, second half, we tend to play better in the second half anyway. Against 10 men, I was sure we were going to win, and we didn't. And it's frustrating. And we had quite a few chances, so lots of crossing into the box. But could he have put on another forward earlier and really gone for it? Maybe. We're dominating anyway, but then obviously the goal was disallowed. Offsides, don't know, haven't got a clue, couldn't see from where I was. It's disappointing. We've now got one more game before the World Cup. Preston away is always tough. Will we get anything from there? I don't know. But we could do with it because we're slightly moving away now. I think we're 10th. We want to stay up near that pack, and then we'll see what happens after the World Cup. But anyway, so that's it. Disappointed, frustrating, but we go on. Cheers, Nick. Come on, your lines.
Hi, Nick. John Rankin here, just calling in with the post-match reaction to the 0-0 draw against Hull City. Very, very frustrating afternoon at the Den. I think that that's the way football goes sometimes. I mean, clearly once Hull had a man sent off in the first half, then playing against 10 men who just sort of stay in and around the penalty area constantly during a match does prove difficult. Interestingly, a couple of observations on the game. The first one was Zian Fleming went very close with a free kick in the first half. I thought it was just outside the penalty box. It was all set up for him to curl it into the top right-hand corner, and that's the way that Hull set up to defend against it. but he dipped it up over the wall and hit the side netting on the left-hand side of the goal, a foot to the right, and that would have been an absolutely beautiful goal because the goalkeeper was in no man's land. So there were a couple of moments. He created another lovely move and a sort of give and go round the wall pass in the first half into the Hull box. Didn't quite complete it. Hull looked pretty good before they had their man sent off. I spoke to a couple of Hull supporters in the car park before the game, and I said, who are your best players? And they mentioned a Colombian guy and another guy, and Hull came out with the typical sort of 3 or 4 really big hulking defenders, maybe one of their attackers, and they did what other teams are doing to us now repeatedly. And I think I said in my last voicemail, we've got to work on this. I asked the Hull fans who their best players were, and they immediately said, well, we got these guys, but you've got Jake Cooper. Jake Cooper's got a massive reputation with other clubs, you know, as our danger man, and it shows now because he cannot get near a ball in the box. It's getting ridiculous. There are 2-3 men round him, and we've just got to sort out some sort of system where we shield him and let him have a free run at the ball, because other teams are wise to it. So he was totally ineffective, and that had a big bearing on the game because, unfortunately, I'm not making excuses for Millwall. Hull obviously sat in and defended, but we showed a real lack of imagination in unlocking them. So our game plan seemed to be play the ball round at the back, send it down one of the channels. If that got cut off, send it back to the centre-backs, send it down the other channel. If that got cut off, which it did because they were defending, send it back to the centre-backs, hoof it up for Tom Bradshaw again, who's 5'5". So, you know, it just doesn't work, and we really lacked that ability down the middle of the park to pick up the ball, run with it, pass the feet and get a move going through the middle. We had lots of shots which were nowhere near on target apart from Zian Fleming's early attempt. We had lots of crosses. We did have a disallowed goal, and it looked pretty marginal to me. Tom Bradshaw managed to get on the end of a cross, and it went into the net off the top of the crossbar down to the goalkeeper. It was a little bit scrappy, but it was a goal, and we were all celebrating until we saw the linesman with his flag up. And I'd like to watch that on the replays, really, to see how far offside that was. But it was a very, very frustrating match to be at. We clearly were all over Hull. They must be absolutely delighted to come away from the Den. It was a well-attended match, obviously Remembrance Sunday, and unfortunately after about 60 minutes I think the crowd started to turn a little bit, and I don't know if that demotivated the players. Tyler Bury didn't have the greatest of games. He got some of his moves went wrong, his attacking moves, and the crowd started to get on top of him a little bit, and he was substituted. There were some good solid performances. No one really stood out. No one really got hold of the game by the scruff of the neck. But, you know, it was difficult in those circumstances. Hull's first game with a new manager, so they're all playing to impress. And, you know, for what they did well. But as I say, we've got to have a bit more imagination going forward. We've got to have a bit more creativity. Scott Malone again didn't have the greatest game defensively. He does deliver the ball quite well into the box from set pieces and corners, but defensively Hull were putting all the pressure on in the first half. Down the left-hand side, we've got Scott Malone and Tyler Bury, and they look very shaky down there. As I'm not trying to dig Scott out. He's a big contributor to the club, but defensively, I think he's a little bit of a weak point. I'd have put Callum Stiles in there myself. But, you know, it's kind of splitting hairs, really. We didn't get the job done. We needed a bit more intelligence. And although he gets a lot of stick from supporters, and I think it's unjustified, that was a game made for Benicophobia, really, because he has the footballing intelligence and the ability to create space in and around the box. He can pick his way through, he can score a goal. When there's lots of defenders around him, he can take on a defender, he can go round one. And I think we missed just that sort of little bit of quality in that final third. I think all the players tried, but it just didn't happen for us. So there you are, frustrating day, but that's football sometimes. And on to Preston North End. Come on, you Lions.
Achtung, Millwall.